When I go to an Asian supermarket, one of my favorite aisles to go down is the dried and preserved fruit section. Usually there is one. And whenever I go down this aisle, I always see just a ton of like little plastic jars filled with fruits that sometimes are mysterious even to me. I have tried a lot of fruit, but seriously, what the hell is a loving plum? And one of these things that I would like to focus on today is this one. This is a fruit with a name that betrays just how interesting it really is. We're going to talk about the Chinese olive. This is a fresh Chinese olive, and this is not an olive. It is not the kind of olive that you buy in a jar and you put on pizza. It is not one of those, okay? That is Olea europea. This is Canarium album. They are not the same species, they are not the same genus, they are not the same family, they are not the same order. Besides the fact that these are both botanically fruits, they have nothing in common whatsoever. Except they do kind of look like olives. And because of that, in China, the word for this translates literally to olive. And for that reason, this fruit is cursed to be forever compared and confused with regular European olives. This is something that is done even on reputable websites that I will often go to for research. They also confuse this or compare this with the European olive. And I think that's kind of a shame because this is a really interesting fruit. And a lot of people don't give it a second look because they're just like, oh, it's like an olive or something. So today, everybody, I'm going to try to change that. This is called a dabai. And it's actually like really, really hard. It's like a very firm fruit. Chinese olives are actually a close relative to one of my favorite fruits, the dabai. The dabai is something that is really popular in Borneo. And what's interesting about those is that how you eat dabai is you soak them in hot water in order to soften it. When you eat them straight out, they're far too hard. These also are quite hard. So the first thing I'm going to try to do is to soften it the way you soften a dabai. So I just soak this in some boiling water. First though, let's try it raw. It's really hard. I guess it's kind of like very resiny, piney, underripe apple in flavor. But this one was soaking for 15 minutes and it has softened a little bit. So let's see if I can bite through this one. It is still a bit hard, but not unpleasant. It has the vibe of eating unripe mango. More of a savory sort of fruit taste, but with a little bit of like a sourness to it. It's around the tartness of an orange, but it's not citrusy so much. It's more like a green apple. Soaking that in hot water wasn't perfect, but it worked better than I thought it would. It softens it enough where you can bite into it. However, most preparations for this in China call for you to first boil it for like at least a half an hour. So let's do that. Yeah, it's softened. Some recipes that use this actually have a lot of steps to it. They'll have you soak this overnight with baking soda, and then you boil it and then change out the water like 3 times. And depending on what you're doing with it, there can be a lot of steps and a lot of time. I don't have time for that, so we're just gonna try it like this. I'm curious to see what it's like when it's softened. This is really weird because I can taste the similarities with the dabai but there is something greatly missing from this. Dubai mostly tastes like buttered carrots, but there is a little bit of like this piney sort of flavor in the background. It tastes like I'm biting into a Dubai, only that rich, buttery flavor that Dubai has is gone, and you're left with everything else. I'm not sure how to feel about that because I like the buttery flavor of it. But with that buttery flavor gone, I'm kind of able to pick apart some of the flavors of this that maybe exist in the Dubai, but I can't tell because I'm overwhelmed with the buttery carrot flavor. This tastes like carrots, no butter involved, green apple, potato, maybe a hint of like a Parmesan flavor minus the fat, a little bit like unripe mango. Dubai are not very tart. It's the same. It's like, 5 out of 10 on tartness. It's not sweet, just remotely. When you cook these, they're good, but it feels like something is missing. I think you do need to add some salt or sugar or seasoning or oil to this in order to fill out that flavor, because it falls a little bit flat when it's just on its own, even when it is cooked. So I'm going to do something with it. I'm not sure what, but I'm going to do that later. Right now, I want to talk about the seeds. Here are pili nuts. Pili nuts are a very interesting one. This is a nut that is eaten in Southeast Asia. I believe it's especially popular in Philippines. Oh yeah. That is good. That is so good. Chinese olives are also related to something called the pili nut. They are the seed inside the nut of a fruit that is related to the Chinese olive. They're prized, they're expensive, they're really, really good. They taste like, kind of like a macadamia nut, but really crispy and buttery. They are getting a little bit more popular in the US. You can even buy them on Amazon if you got a lot of money. And Dubai, by the way, even though people don't usually eat them so much for the seed, they eat them for the fruit, you can eat Dubai seeds, and they are really, really good. And pili nuts, on the other side of the coin, you can eat the fruit of pili nuts, and it tastes kind of like Dubai. Some people prize this genus for its fruit, others prize it for the seeds. Chinese olive, the seeds of these are also edible, but it's not so common. The fruit is definitely more common. Okay, so I got the fresh ones here, and also the dried ones. I took some of the ones from the salted olive packet and I stripped the flesh off just to see if maybe you can eat the kernels of those. Never thought of it. So let's see. Let's take one of these guys, cover it so it doesn't get everywhere, and fairly easy to crack. So that is the kernel there. It's like a little bit bigger than a sunflower seed, and it's also still pretty wet in there, even though I dried them out. Okay, so let's try the kernel of a fresh Chinese olive. It tastes a bit like the fruit on the outside, actually. A little chestnutty. Meh, I wouldn't bother. But what about the dried ones? Can you buy a packet of salted, preserved Chinese olives and eat the kernel inside? Let's find out. So the dried one actually fared a bit better. It's also quite wet in there, considering that packet has probably been on the shelf for like 5 years. So let's try the kernel of a God knows how old Chinese olive that has been preserved. Okay. It tastes saltier, but it tastes, I guess, the same. It's not as crisp, though. It's like a little wilty in there. Honestly, I don't think either the preserved or the fresh one are worth the trouble of getting into it. The kernel is very, very small. I can see the use for this in times of need. You know, it's probably got a little extra protein in there. There's probably some nutrition in that. And clearly it does keep for a really long time. The kernel on that dried one tasted all right. Tasted all right. Doesn't taste like something that's rancid or anything. If you were living off the land and you had one of these trees, I could see maybe using the fruit and then saving the seeds for, like, you know, tough times. But otherwise, it's not really worth the trouble of getting into. All right, everybody, as promised, I'm going to do something with the Chinese olive fruit. But first, I'm going to try some of the products that are made from it. This is the reason why I picked these up in the first place, because the most common preparation for this is dried fruit. You'll either find it whole like this, or you'll find little slices with the seeds cut out. So let's try this first. I don't really like it. I'm getting salt, I'm getting sugar, I'm getting preservative flavor. I'm not really getting much else. I'm not getting that appley flavor, I'm not getting that carrot flavor, I'm not getting like any of that, because this is kind of like overshadowed with the seasoning that's on it. Next up, olive juice. Talk about a deterring name. Even when you look at the ingredients of this, the ingredients are water, olives, high fructose syrup, sugar additives, etc. But you know, it doesn't say Chinese olives. It doesn't say the species name. It just says olives. So if you didn't know any better, you could pick this up thinking that you are literally going to be drinking some olive brine with sugar in it. Not the case. Not the case. Olive juice, in fact, tastes pretty good. Pretty good. It tastes like a pineapple juice. It's not like the full flavor of pineapple, though. It doesn't really have the acid bite of pineapple. It's a little bit more mellow than pineapple, but pretty close to pineapple, which is interesting because I don't really get pineapple when I try the fruit raw or cooked. Next up, olive vegetable. This is a thing that exists, and what this is condiment sauce, maybe, that is made with the Chinese olive, as well as some seasoning and mustard greens. This is something that you can make yourself if you'd like. There are some videos online explaining how to do this. Maybe if I remember, I will link one below. I considered making this myself with the fresh one, but that is a very, very lengthy process that takes days. It takes a really long time to do that. So I'm not going to do that, but I am going to use this, and I'm going to make something with it. Here it is. So what I did is I tried to replicate a recipe that usually uses long beans and pork, but I used tofu instead. So I took the tofu, I crumbled it up, and then I fried it with oil and one black cardamom pod. I thought that might add a little bit of smokiness to it, a little umami sort of whatever. So I let that cook until it started to brown. I removed that from the wok. Then I took some long beans that I cut up into inch-sized pieces. I fried that with a bit of dried chili pepper just for a couple of minutes. Then I added the tofu back, added a tablespoon or two of the olive vegetable, mixed it up, and there you have it. That is tasty. That is really tasty. I'm definitely getting the mustard greens. Mustard greens have a nice, like, bitter spinach taste with a little bit of a bite to it. That's really nice. Tofu's good. It's nice and firm from being cooked like that. I'm not sure exactly what the olives are contributing here. The olives are whole, at least some of them are, inside the jar. So I'm gonna nibble on one of these. They're black now from being processed, however this vegetable is processed. Let's try a whole one. Those are really good. Very rich and dark, and like buttery and soy sauce kind of flavor. It is actually a bit like olives when you have it like that. It feels like they're, maybe they are, like they're cured the way an olive is. If I have piqued your interest at all about the Chinese olive, I'd say at the very least, pick up that olive vegetable. That is good stuff. Okay then, so I have right here cooked Chinese olives, and what I did is I took them, I cut them in half, I took the seeds out, I fried them for about 5 minutes until they started to turn brown a little bit, then I drained them and added some salt on top. My idea is that this is now going to have more fat content to it and maybe will taste more like the Dubai, which I prefer. Let's see if this worked. It's not like Dubai, you know, it's definitely its own thing, but it's not bad either. What's most interesting about it is that these retain this tartness to them. So the flavor of it is like potatoes, carrots, pepper, but also a little bit of lemon. This is definitely an improvement, but not perfect. You know, I definitely do like Dubai more. I could sit down with a bowl of Dubai and just like eat them one after the other. With this, it's something a little bit more vegetal to it, a little bit of tartness to it. It's not the same sort of experience, but it is good. I think this is something that you want to take this and you want to mix it into something. The fact that they make a condiment with this and mustard greens that goes into certain dishes makes a lot of sense. You know, cut this up and mix it in with some vegetables, mix it in with some rice or a noodle or something like that, mix it in with other things. It does add a nice flavor to it. Although seeing the dried olive on the supermarket shelf is what initially made me want to really dig deep on this fruit, I think that's actually my least favorite use of it. I think having it cooked is good. I think having it fried is useful. I think the olive vegetable is really good stuff. The juice is good. It's something that needs a little bit of help. And I think if you do that, you can get some pretty interesting results with it. There are a lot of possibilities with the Chinese olive. It unfortunately has a name that kind of keeps you away from it. But if you're willing to pick this up, I think you will find that it is very useful. And I certainly learned a lot today. Hope you learned something too, and I will see you all next time. Bye-bye. I would like to give a very big shout out to Smarter Everyday, Bill T, and Wootbot. They are mega patrons over on patreon.com. This is how I managed to keep this channel going, so it is a huge help to anyone watching who is interested in learning more about how you can help the channel and get some cool stuff in return, like early access to videos, exclusive videos. There's actually over 100 of them already that you can get access to. There's a level where I'll send you stuff in the mail. You gotta check it out. There's more information about this down in the description below.